a screen here? Will you be?
Can you share it?
I don't see an
Um, it's with the camera make setting option. Can you click on that?
can share. That's fine as well.
Okay, so hello everyone and welcome to the Prep Days Day 2. And I am Nisha Razi and I am currently co-leading Karachi chapter of PWEC, and we have Wajiha Akram with us from Kareem. She'll be guiding us about the interview process for the software engineering track. So Wajiha, over to you. Can you please share your screen? It's with the camera mic option if you can see that. Share screen
Yes.
option. Okay. Can you?
Just give me 1 minute, please.
Yeah, we can see your screen. Vijay, you're not audible. Your voice is breaking. We can't hear you.
How
Vijay, we
is it
can't.
now?
It's
Can you hear me
breaking.
now?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. I think this is actually one of the points I was going to cover in today's session around connections. But yeah, looks like I think we have a practical demo to start with of what you don't want to happen on an interview. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to share my learnings with you, and I hope that I can give you some suggestions, share some insights that will help you in your career journey. At any It's still not good. Okay, so I would say if you kindly give me a few moments, I will rejoin the session and then we can begin. And I'll try to move to a location closer to my router. Apologies for any problems.
No worries.
Hello once again. I hope you can hear me
Hello.
better now.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Hopefully things will go smoothly this time. Thank you for
Yeah.
waiting. So, yes, to get started. So, yeah, like I was saying, I hope that I can share some insights that will help you on your career journey. In terms of our audience today, because I can't see who has joined, who do we have with us in the audience? Is it like how many people are there?
We have 2 to 3 people watching right now.
Is my audio still not great?
I think let's start because it will be available on Facebook and it's a live stream, so
Okay, perfect.
we
All
can
right. In any
continue.
case, I will get started and then we'll see how this goes. Uh, cool. So to start with, the stage before the interview. There is during the interview, and then there's after the interview. So I'll be going through tips on the whole journey, from preparation up all the way through to how do you manage the interview itself, and go from there. So to start with, I want to talk about the different formats of technical interviews because formats can vary quite widely. Uh, so my if my audience today is mostly in Pakistan,
Can't hear you. It's breaking again. Can you hear me? But I can't hear you. It's breaking again. We are waiting for Vajiha Akram to rejoin.
Yes, so back, I have checked my stats on my connection and it looks fine. How is it? How is it from your perspective? Do you have any
I
idea
can
what
hear
the
you
problem could
clearly
be?
now. It is
Mhm.
probably something with bandwidth.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess in any case, I think if it's somewhat audible, if we can even do
Yeah,
audio only.
I can hear
Okay,
you.
yeah,
Yeah,
because I,
I
I,
can
I do
hear
really
you
want
clearly.
to take the opportunity to
Thank you so much for
yeah.
efforts. We can start now? I think.
Okay, perfect. Uh, All right, great. So, like I was saying, we're going to start by talking about the different interview formats that you can have, right? So, there's a large variety in the sort of formats that are used across different companies. So, you want to be prepared for the different formats, and the key here is knowing when you're going into an interview, what's the format that's used by that particular company that you're applying for. So, let me go walk through like some different types of processes. So there may be anywhere from 5 to 6 rounds that happen in one day, to interviews scheduled over a number of days, to even a number of weeks for some companies. Uh, in other companies, it may be a more informal process where you basically go into an unstructured interview where you just talk about the work you've done. The interviewer or a panel of interviewers will ask questions related to your projects, and then you basically take it from there. So we've got kind of the whole variation, and you want to prepare when you're preparing for giving a range of interviews. You want to basically prepare for all those formats. So I would suggest that at the time that you schedule the interview, most companies will send out some communication that tells you what's the format they follow, what are the different rounds within the company. Go through that material, and that will get you familiar. So in this particular session, I'll try to cover the variants, but basically cover the contents that will be relevant to all of these interview types. So one other thing which we've seen a very practical demo of, in a way, as we're kind of sorting out our technical issues, is if you're interviewing remotely, it's a different mode, and you want to be prepared for kind of contingencies. So having a backup connection is extremely important. Knowing that you want to find a quiet spot where you'll have the least interruption, and then you'll be able to focus on the interview itself. That becomes extremely important, because most companies are interviewing remotely, or at least giving the option to interview remotely as well. If you feel that it may not work for you, you may want to ask if there's an in-person option as well, if you feel more comfortable with that. So like I said, there may be a various number of rounds scheduled, anywhere from back-to-back sessions in the same day to sessions spanning a few days, or even perhaps one session a week, and so on. And also, the mode of communication will vary across the rounds. Some The initial pre-screens that a lot of companies do, maybe phone interviews, and subsequent rounds maybe in person, or via video conferencing. uh, so yeah, I think so those were the rounds generally, and these will vary from company to company. uh, and now we'll kind of go through, within each of these rounds, what are the formats that can be used. So so when we talk about technical interview rounds, not all the interviews themselves may be technical. So you may have some interviews where the content is focused purely on a specific technical topic. So you may have an interview specifically focused around coding, another one around data structures and algorithms. Then you may have an interview which is a hiring manager round, where it won't be solely focused on technical stuff, but they'll be focused on behavioral aspects as well. And then basically, sort of, it's a round where you, as well as the hiring manager, has an opportunity to get to know each other better, and see how good a fit it is, both ways, for yourself and for the organization as well. So even within the software engineering track, you'll have some interviews which are technically focused, others which are not so much. But the underlying theme, and this holds for technical interviews as well, is that even in your technical interviews, the technical know-how or competencies are extremely important. But even within those rounds, the behavioral aspects uh, are still being assessed. So, how you tackle the problem, how you collaborate, how you communicate, how you basically work with the interviewer to reach a solution. Those are all things that will still be relevant even for technical rounds as well. Right. So, let me give you some examples of the different sort of formats that we may have within the technical rounds. Again, I'm not going to go with any specific company's format. You can actually look as soon as you're applying, you'll see kind of what are the various rounds. But this
But
is
we are
relevant.
also interested to hear from you about the process of Kareem,
Yes,
which is the
certainly.
Kareem's
Yeah,
process.
definitely.
So,
Definitely, yeah.
yeah,
I will talk about the process we have as well, and
okay.
we're looking for great engineers like all of you here. So would be happy to kind of give insights there as well in terms of how the process works. But it's very standard. So it's aligned with the preparation you do for one of these kind of for one company will be relevant to other companies as well, because there's a fairly standard process across most tech companies that's going to be followed. So in terms of the format of the technical rounds, and the way the problems are presented, there may be like some variants. So for example, uh, some in some companies you may be given a take home assignment, which or maybe one of the rounds is that you're given a take home assignment which you are to complete within 24 to 48 hours, and then you have a panel which will or a single interviewer who will basically discuss your solution with you. So you'll be talking about the solution. You'll basically spend some time outside of the interview to complete the project, and the interview itself will consist of maybe walking through the code, talking about how you approach the problem. So it's more of a uh, sort of an assignment based interview format. Um, and so that's one way it may be. The other interview format that's commonly used is you're presented with problem statements during the interview, maybe one, maybe multiple problem statements, and you basically work on the problem at hand. So it's going to be depending on the round. So if it's a coding round, it'll be like a programming problem. If it's a system design round, it'll be a design problem. That's the other format. So you start with a problem statement and you work towards the solution. That's the second format. Another format yet may be that you are presented with a snippet of code and you're asked questions regarding the code. Maybe you're asked to optimize it. Maybe you're asked to uh, critique it or find some problem in it. So that could be something as well. And similarly, if it's a system design round, you may be kind of presented a design and asked to critique the design. So be prepared and practice with kind of all these variants in mind. That it's not sort of one type of questioning or approach that's used in all the interviews. So yeah, I think we've covered the different types of approaches. So coming now to the preparation. So actually, preparation is a really, really integral part of basically applying. So regardless of how experienced you are, I have friends who have been uh, in the industry for many, many years, and we including when I talk about myself and friends, we basically still take the time to prepare for interviews. So no matter your level of seniority, whether you're just out of school and you're basically looking to apply for a grad position, or you are 10, 15 years into your career, the preparation is still relevant. And it's, if you invest, I think of it as an investment of your time. So invest your time in your preparation. And also, as you would approach any problem, it helps to be organized. So you want to have a plan for your preparation. So for example, if you're a student and you know that you're going to be interviewing after 6 months, start your preparation at that stage. Set aside 30 minutes in a day when you know you're going to be solving coding problems. Now, I think what's really like, we have all the materials at our fingertips, right? So finding the materials is or finding questions to practice is really easy. You just search for, there are multiple platforms online for doing competitive coding problems. uh, it's just a matter of scheduling time to do them regularly enough so that you brush up your skills. So again, you're probably, if you try to do it all in the 2 days before the interview, that's fine as a crash course. But ideally, you want to space to have some time reserved over a longer period of time to prepare. Maybe give it half an hour every day as you're looking to start applying. And obviously, before the interview, you'll want to kind of maybe spend some dedicated time itself. So that's around the sort of mindset you go into preparation with. You want to be organized, and you want to have practice at the heart of your preparation. So uh, lots of hands-on practice, because uh, nowadays, like most of the coding rounds are very hands-on. You're expected uh, to code during the interview, whether that's a whiteboarding exercise, or if it may actually be the requirement may be to write working code. So you may be running test cases on your code. So you basically, and you may not have your familiar IDE, which will give you a lot of kind of convenience. So you may basically you'll want to brush up and practice your programming skills, uh, regardless of whether how experienced you are. I think it helps. So it's both the problem solving aspect, but cannot underestimate the importance of practice as you go into the various rounds. uh, right. So, coming to the second step of preparation, so you have basically invested, you've decided to set aside some time in your for your preparation. The first step is to get to know the company that you're applying for and reflect on why you want to apply for this position. So this step is extremely
Vajiha,
important. Yes,
are
Isha?
you are you sharing your screen?
No, I'm not actually, because
Okay,
we were
okay.
having connectivity issues, so I thought I'll just sort of
Okay.
hopefully it's not too uh, because it gets a bit monotonous without the slides. But I hope I'm feel free to
Yeah,
ask
yeah, we are
questions and we can
able
make
to.
this more
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
interactive and actual. So I'm referring to my slides, but I will not project them here at the moment.
Okay.
Cool. So the next step, like I said, get to know the company. So as soon as you're going to be interviewing, uh, get to know the company as well as you can. So this is around whatever materials they have online. Maybe if you know some people who work there, talk to them, get a feel for what the company is about, and also why you would want to work for that company, because it's a question that you likely do see in a lot of interviews. And also it's a fundamental question that you yourself have to answer if you're applying to a company. Why do I want to apply here, and why is this the right fit for me? So after you've done that, think about any questions you may want to ask during any of the rounds. So the sort of questions you may have for the company you may not want to ask those in a coding round. Some questions you may want to ask in a hiring manager round instead. So have like some questions that you have, and then you can decide when is a relevant time to ask those questions. uh, Also, very important, like I said at the beginning, and this is true for Kareem as well. Uh, when you basically when your interviews are scheduled, companies will share preparation guidelines with you. So, basically, uh, we want candidates to succeed and to basically be in a position that they can demonstrate their skills to the best possible level, right? So the preparation material, most companies will share that with the candidate ahead of time. So now it's a matter of going through that very thoroughly and really practicing on that content. Uh, Obviously, whatever expertise you've built over your university years, over your projects, that remains. But nonetheless, that preparation specific to the interview is quite relevant as well. So yeah, go through the preparation guidance and go through it quite thoroughly, because it'll give you uh, a good amount of material actually to start with. Also, one resource which is quite useful, like I said, we have a lot of information sort of at our fingertips these days. So if you search online for the interview processes of all the big tech names in the world today, you will find that they share a lot of content. So there'll be guidelines, mock interviews are available. You'll also have the topics to study. So I would suggest looking up the interview rounds and any guidance there are for the big tech names, globally. And there's a lot of material that you can find there to sort of go over and help you in your preparation. Um, right. So that's the that's the part about going through content which is specific around a particular topic. uh, the next thing is to also take the time to go through all of your previous projects and experience, and uh, and be prepared to talk about your previous experience and your projects. And this may, you may think everything is like, fresh in your mind, but it can be helpful to go through work you've done previously and be prepared to talk about it in a great level of depth. Some questions, so as you begin to discuss the projects you worked on, that may that will basically keep the conversation going. Can you hear me, Isha? I think Isha has dropped. Are you
No, no,
there?
I'm here. Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
I
I
can
couldn't
hear
see
you.
you. Okay, okay, perfect. Yeah, just give me a heads up if you cannot, because I
Yeah,
cannot
yeah,
see
I
from
can.
the side.
I'm just
Okay,
backstage, so
perfect.
yeah.
Perfect. All right. Excellent. Sounds good. So I'll continue. Uh, Right. Yeah. So I was saying that, be prepared to discuss in depth your previous experience and projects. And this is a matter of just going through. Maybe you want to uh, you know, take a paper and pencil, and jot down various aspects. Really kind of do a mental run through of all the work that you've done, whether it's academic work or professional experience projects that you've worked on, because you'll likely be talking about them in one of your interviews. So yeah, I mean, going on beyond that, let's talk about the coding round, right? So uh, most companies structure the tech rounds in this way. So for positions which are grad positions, you likely have a coding interview, which one or two, like multiple coding. Some companies do one, others will do more than one, but these are basically focused primarily on solving uh, on a coding problem that you'll have to solve. Then you may have a specific dedicated round for data structures and algorithms. Uh, if you're applying for a slightly more advanced position, which you may have a system design interview. For entry level, for kind of grad positions, will you may or may not have a system design round, but regardless, you'll know this at the time of the scheduling of the interviews. So we've got the coding, data structures, and algorithms. We've got the system design, and then you'll have some form of one or more uh, rounds, which are more like hiring manager rounds, or rounds which are looking at values fit and culture fit for the company. That's the general stream, and this is what we follow at Kareem as well. It's what most companies follow. However, within Pakistan, there is still, like I said, a lot of variation. You may not have this sort of structured process in all companies. There may be some more informal, or uh, I would say conversational interviews, as opposed to more hands-on. Uh, but I'm going to start discussing the rounds uh, which are basically where you're expected to problem solve during the interview. So starting with the coding round, yeah. So how do you approach the coding round? Uh, so practicing problems within a time constraint. That's the key here. So for this, you'll want to go to their multiple online platforms, Career Cup, Top Coder. There's a lot. You just search for it online, and you'll find multiple platforms where you can basically find competitive coding problems that you can practice. So the best thing you can do for this round is to practice these questions, and practice them in a setting that's going to be similar to your actual interview setting. So time constrained kind of problem solving. In terms of the programming language to use, so most companies will give you the option at the start to choose a programming language of your choice. Be prepared to kind of, you don't want to make that decision on the fly, know ahead of time. Well, you may, I mean, if you want to, you may want to make that decision on the fly if the problem requires thinking about which programming language is a good fit for the problem at hand. So if the problem requires you uh, to script something, you may choose to do the scripting in Python, for example. Whereas other problems you may want to tackle in a different language, but go in with that preparation in one or two programming languages that you want to give the interview in. uh, if the company is hiring for a role which is tech stack specific, then obviously you'll want to prepare for that particular programming language, which is sort of a niche a niche tech stack sort of position. So if that's a requirement, you'll want to prepare for that particular programming language as well. So yeah, this part can be lots of fun. There is so much material in terms of the sort of problems to practice, and you just basically have to do as many as you want. Some people do maybe 10 to 5 problems a day and keep doing that consistently to bring to build up the muscle to do these in a within that time constraint sort of environment. Then we move on to the data structures and algorithms. So this is also kind of a standard round that most companies have. And if you're actually applying for a position just after university, you have an edge there because all of this will be fresh in your mind. You will have gone through your standard data structures and algorithms. You want to practice them ahead of time. And the key here is actually not necessarily, so obviously you have to have your basic concepts there, but the interview is all about the application of those concepts. So you want, when you're presented with a problem in a data structures and algorithms round, you want to take your knowledge of the data structures and algorithms that you know, which is your sort of toolkit which you have, and you want to map the problem which you're getting to something. That's one way to navigate this, because very rarely will you get a problem which says write the code for like binary search, for example, or a very you likely not get a direct algorithms or data structures question. It will be an application of those concepts. So when you're preparing, keep that in mind. As you work through different problems, you'll notice that certain classes of problems lend themselves well to a certain type of solution, and over time you'll build this expertise that, for example, if you're dealing with sorted data, you're likely going to be doing some variation of binary sort. So kind of thinking about those classes of problems and how to map them to the toolkit which you have, that's relevant as well. So that is the data structures and algorithms round. So here my tips are: brush up on your basic concepts of the basic data structures and algorithms. Practice problems. Again, you'll find multiple resources online. Be familiar with your big O notation, computation, your space and time complexity analysis, all the stuff that you would typically, the core concepts of data structures and algorithms. There are some awesome books. Without going into names, you all, like, if you search online for the on Amazon for the most popular coding interview preparation books, there are books with hundreds of problems which you can which I would recommend practicing ahead of time, because that can really help you brush up your skills. uh, cool. So that was the technical rounds. The one technical round I've not covered here in detail is system design. uh, System design as well. uh, Again, the preparation is around taking sample questions, maybe watching some mock interviews. Again, multiple resources online. You can basically find mock system design interviews from the top tech companies. Go through them, and then maybe you want to work with a friend to actually do a mock interview yourself. Or if you're working on your own, start with the well-known apps that you use, and say, how would I design this system, and go from there. It's really important also to have your distributed systems concepts you know very well established if you're going into a system design round as well, because that's the nature of most systems today. So you'll be likely be expected to cover those aspects. But again, like I said, this depends on the seniority of the role you're applying for. Like, most companies will have only a very basic system design interview if you're applying for a grad position, just after university. Uh, cool. So now that we've covered the technical rounds, any questions or anything, Isha, that you have in mind, or anyone from the audience? Right. I see there's a question from Bilal. I'll cover that. How are system design interviews planned for fresh grads having? Yes, yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. That most companies will not have a system design interview at that stage. If they do, uh, you'll basically be given guidelines around how to prepare for it. What's the level of expertise required. So like I said, you basically study for the basic system design concepts, which are foundational. So you wouldn't likely be expected uh, to understand the advanced security uh, features of the application as a non-functional requirement, for example. But the sort of basic approach to designing systems, understanding, collecting the requirements, gathering the functional requirements, the non-functional requirements, uh, thinking about redundancy, thinking about data stores, uh, single points of failure in the system. So all of your standard system design concepts. But again, it's not usually expected, because fresh grads will likely not have any uh, practical system design experience at scale. So do kind of do if it is an interview round that's there, you can ask the company for guidance on what's going to be covered in the round, and most times that will be provided. I hope that answers the question, Bilal, adequately. So going forward from there, coming to the non-technical rounds. So for the non-technical rounds, like I mentioned, uh, these are more around assessing uh, if what is the cultural fit that you have with for the company. So it'll be these will be basically more conversational in format. So um, you'll be talking through what interests you. You may be asked to talk about certain situations that you've been in. So when you go into these rounds, one thing that helps you navigate the questions is to have a data driven approach. Think of specific situations when you've demonstrated a particular quality, for example. And here it helps to have done this ahead of time. So one of the standard ones that you kind of the standard questions that you may see in these sort of rounds is, how do you have you ever been in a situation where there's been some conflict, and how have you resolved it. So there you want to kind of look through your previous experience, whether it's during university or your previous work experience, and really have specific instances to demonstrate where you've basically applied or demonstrated certain values and approaches to working with others. So here you're being the key uh, the key things that are being sort of assessed are your collaboration skills and values fit for the company. So that's all I wanted to cover around the behavioral rounds, because they do vary from company to company, but in general, that's the concept. And again, these are standard interviews, so you'll find a lot of materials online on how to prepare for these rounds. How to have those specific situations in mind ahead of time, and to have thought about uh, the key questions that sort of appear in these rounds as well. So yeah, those are the non-technical rounds. So this was the preparation part. So now we've prepared for the interview, sort of rewinding a little bit and kind of stepping back. So you basically have at this stage taken the time, you've scheduled some time to prepare, you have prepared for all the rounds. Now we come to the day of the interview, what's important before the interview and during the interview. So at the time of the interview, punctuality, of course, is key. If you're interviewing remotely, uh, you want to have a checklist of things. So a disturbance free location, a video friendly location. You want to be hydrated, energized, rested, because uh, you may be doing up to 5 interviews in a day back to back. So a lot of companies have hiring days where you basically, and they also want to give you feedback and have you it's easier to schedule one day for interviews rather than having them spaced out. So you may have interviews basically back to back with small breaks between. So you'll need to be well rested, and you'll also want to build up your your practice of doing these problems, because you know the exhaustion can begin to I would I'd say, if not exhaustion, at least it can get to be a bit of a struggle to keep yourself focused after multiple interviews. And there it's important to have practiced, and also, maybe you want to have some chocolate handy, for example, in case you need an energy boost, or kind of be prepared to take those breaks to energize yourself. So yeah, that's around the checklist. So next, you may want to have a paper and pencil handy, even if you are going to be doing the coding round using some sort of collaborative software. But you still want to jot down things, perhaps as the interviewer is talking, as you're thinking, you may want to jot down notes. So have paper and pencil handy. You'll also want to attend using a laptop. Some people do attend using other devices like phones, but you may be expected, and you should go into the interview knowing what's expected during the interview. So if it's going to be a hands-on coding interview, that will not likely sort of work very well if you're on a smaller screen device. So yeah, that is around the checklist. A few other points, yeah. So internet connection and backup, especially, I think that's very relevant. You want to have one or two backups even, so that you can not have to worry about your connection during the interview as well, because you may have unpredictable disturbances as well. Cool. So that is before the interview. So now we go into uh, during the interview. So, regardless of the type of round it is, whether it's a technical round or a non technical round, it's important to have your basic communication skills, uh, kind of put them to good use. So, these are all the basics of communication, which are around good listening, uh, the rules of conversation, uh, your usual communication skills. At the end of the day, it should be an interesting session. The interview session should add learning value for you, and it shouldn't. The more conversational it is, the better. And actually, one of the most important things during your technical rounds is actually demonstrating your thinking process. So the interviewer wants to understand how you're uh, how you're approaching the problem. So uh, I would advise you to kind of approach it very collaboratively. So as you get a problem statement, uh, clarify and communicate. So the two C's, you want to ask clarifying questions. You want to make sure you understand the problem. So it's not like a test where you have a problem and you just have to kind of go with it and come up with a solution. It's part of the key part of solving any problem is understanding the problem itself, understanding what's the scope of the problem that you're trying to solve. So uh, take that opportunity to clarify anything that you need, to communicate, to kind of make it a back and forth communication. As you begin to think about your solution, you want to talk out loud really about your problem solving approach. Tell the interviewer how you're viewing the problem, and how you're navigating the ideas for a solution. So if you have multiple ideas around how to solve the problem, you may want to uh, mention both, and then talk about the trade-offs, why you want to go with one versus the other, because that's a fundamental part of the technical rounds. And then, in terms of solving the problem, you will want to start with a basic solution, perhaps, and then you want to iterate upon it to improve. You don't necessarily need to go for the most complex or the best solution straight off. As a matter of fact, talking through how you problem solve from a basic, coming up with a basic solution and then refining it to a more advanced solution, that's an important skill to have as well. So uh, that's another suggestion. Uh, so yeah, I think these are the key tips I had for during the interview. Uh, One other topic in terms of technical rounds, you also want to go through your object oriented design principles ahead of time as well, because those may be covered during the interview. In conclusion, I would like to kind of highlight. You probably heard of the growth mindset. And anyone who's attending the session obviously already has a growth mindset because they're thinking of how they can improve their interviewing skills. But as with anything else for interviewing as well, the growth mindset is extremely important. If you've not heard the term, um, you can. There's a famous TED talk by Carol Dweck that covers the growth mindset and how understanding that your brain has the capacity to continuously learn and improve. You want to incorporate that into your interview preparation as well. So it's the concept of if you're not somewhere where you want to be, you don't want to think of it as I'm not here. You just want to say I'm not here yet, and with the right learning, I will reach where I need to be. So have a growth mindset, and of course, beyond the once you have the growth mindset, the effort comes naturally. So have the right attitude, put in the effort, and then finally, I wish you all the best for your interviews, and I hope with the right preparation, like each and every one of us has the potential to ace these interviews. It's just a matter of uh, preparing right and having the right frame of mind for the interviews. Uh, so that's the content that I wanted to cover. So at this stage, if we have any questions, I'd like to open the floor for questions, and we can go through specific questions. Anything from your side, Isha, that you'd like me to cover?
No, I think you have pretty much covered everything.
Excellent, awesome, good stuff. So uh, yeah, if you have, I'm on LinkedIn as well. Any questions, anything? I mean, happy
Uh,
to help in any way. So please reach out, and I'd
can
be
you drop your LinkedIn in the
sure. Yeah,
comments?
yes,
Because
yeah,
that
sure,
will
yeah,
help a lot, and I would like to connect with you too because
certainly, certainly. I'll share that with you here. Uh, just give me one moment, please. Any questions from the audience?
no, it was pretty straightforward and like
Hmm.
everything was covered.
Hmm. Excellent. I'm just going to share my LinkedIn details here as well for anyone who has questions afterwards and may want to get in touch. So on the chat, I'll share that there. Right. So I don't know if I'm able to. Okay. Yeah. If everyone can see that or whether that's going directly to you, Aisha. We've got a question, another question in the chat from
From Kashish Pasta.
Kashish.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So yes, yeah, growth mindset. It's a revolutionary concept, and I think it's something that's actually taught in school. So my son, we when he was young, we were in the UK, and they actually. As part of the school curriculum, the growth mindset is taught to children. So it's so fundamental um, to learning that I personally feel like children should be taught this concept at a very early age in school because I've seen how it's made an impact. It's had an impact on my own son's learning journey as well. Uh, so advice for online coding tests. Yes. So again, the same advice holds. So it's all about practice because those online tests will be time bound. So you may have anything from an hour to maybe a couple of hours to solve the problems. The more practice you've done in a time constrained setting, the better the odds are for kind of uh, getting those questions right. So practice again. I think the key here is practice for all of these questions, and there are multiple online forums, so you can finding coding problems. There are also standard books on the coding interview that you can get, and they have multiple questions that you can practice. My key message for online coding tests is practice in a time constrained fashion. Maybe if in your universities you have competitive programming, taking part in those sessions as well really helps. You can build that skill over time. So yeah, that's for that. I hope that that answers your question, Kashish. Cool, awesome. It was really great talking to you all. I hope you've taken away some learnings from this session, and you'll be able to use them to advance your careers. I wish you all the best of luck.
Thank you so
And
much.
yeah,
Thank you
feel
so
free to
much for
get in
taking
touch
out
with me
time.
if you have any other questions.
Thank you so much for taking out time.
My pleasure. Have a great day, everyone. Allah Hafiz. Bye bye.
Allah Hafiz.